relation to a video that I had just posted here recently. It was a video that I had done on the best palettes from the higher end market. So I kind of talked about those palettes and talked about the ones that I think are definitely worth the money and the palettes that I think are worth purchasing. So if you guys wanted to check that video out, I will have it linked right around here, but it'll also be in the description bar below in case later on you want to check it out. Before we get started into my drugstore version of my favorite palettes, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. There's a red button. That way you guys can be a part of my channel. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get jumping into this video. So to begin with palette number one, this one here is a bit of a newer palette in my opinion, but it is probably one of my favorite palettes already. This one here is the Au Naturel by Wet n Wild. I just recently did a video with Live Glam and we did a full-on high-end and a dupe version of my face. So we did one where it was just drugstore and we did one that it was high-end. So I thought about recreating that look, kind of a drugstore versus, well, my hair's in my way. I thought of recreating the look, kind of a drugstore versus a higher end look. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it, but if you guys want to see it, let me know down in the comments below. But this is the palette that I used, and I used this palette to do a dupe for a higher end palette. I believed I used the Balm palette, and this was the dupe. And the reason I love this palette so much is because a lot of the colors that are in here are a lot of the colors that you find in the higher end market right now. A lot of people are really loving those pinks and those violets and those maroon colors and the oranges and all those colors. And this palette here just really captures all of it. This palette is a great palette. There are a lot of great matte colors in here, a lot of great shimmer shadows, but I love that the shimmer shadows aren't chalky at all. But this one, in my opinion, they're very smooth, as you guys can see, very, very pigmented. This here is the lighter color, and just look at the pigmentation on it. I mean, it's incredible. So if you guys are looking for an affordable dupe to some of the higher end palettes that kind of showcase some of these colors, this is definitely a great palette to pick up. This one here, one of my favorite palettes so far. It already has kind of been one of my go-tos. So the next palette I want to mention is by Milani. Now, ooh, look at my swatches. When you are looking at Milani, just keep in mind that their prices are a little bit steeper. They're kind of in that same range as like L'Oreal. But this one here is the Milani eyeshadow collections. I want to not try to blind you here. So here is what the palette looks like. Now they do have a great range of shadows. This one in particular is my favorite just because it's an all neutral palette. They have one which I couldn't find in my collection for some reason, but it's got the orange tone shades, and in my opinion it's kind of like a really small dupe for the Morphe 350 palette. It doesn't have as many colors obviously, but it has those good orange tone colors to it. So definitely check out Milani when it comes to palettes, especially this collection. They have, I believe, a set about 6 different shadow collections to pick from. There's a purple, there's a blue, you've got this one, you got a cool tone, you got a very warm tone. It's a lot of really good different selections. So if this one isn't really your forte, they've got some other colors. But Milani eyeshadow palettes, especially this one in my particular opinion, is a really good palette. It does run, like I said, on the bit of a more expensive side, but the colors are really good. They're soft, they're buttery. You get a lot of product in my opinion, and they're just really, really good shadows. And not to mention, look at that vibrancy right there. Do you guys see that? That is from this, I want to say it's from this one, is that it? Yeah, look at that. I mean, just the vibrancy on these shadows are incredible, and I just can't get over how great they are. I've used them in numerous looks that you guys may have seen me do for drugstore palettes. I use this palette quite often. I use a lot of their palettes that come in this form. So if you guys are looking for a palette that is very travel friendly and it's just got some basic shades like a shimmer shadow, some matte shadows, and it's gonna be easy and carry around or to keep in your purse, this is definitely one I would recommend to hold on to. Alright guys, so the next palette I want to mention, which mine is a little cracked, so keep in mind, oh no, it's very cracked, it's like falling apart, but this here is an all shimmer palette, and this is by the company called E.L.F. I'm sure you've heard of them before. This is the E.L.F. Prism palette. I do believe they have like 2, maybe 3 of these palettes, but I really, really like them. But when it comes to E.L.F., to me, E.L.F. is really hit and miss. Some of their products are really good steals, and some of them are kind of like, you can do without. But this particular palette is a really good palette. It's a really good beginner palette. It's a really good palette for anybody on a budget. And if you were looking for intensity and payoff and really good natural colors, these colors are really going to give it to you. And I also like these colors can also be played around with as like highlighters. Like you can kind of mix and match them and kind of play around with it. I also love that it comes with a really great mirror, which is a really great find for a lot of palettes. If you can get a really good full-size mirror. So the next palette that we have is this one right here. This here is the Comfort Zone palette, and this is by Wet n Wild again. This one here I really do like. It's been around for quite some time. It's kind of a staple in a lot of people's makeup collections, and the reason for it is because a lot of people have been able to find a lot of great dupes for this palette. They're very soft. Once again, Wet n Wild does have incredible, great shadows for the price point. But the other reason why I really like it is this green right here. This green is one of my favorite greens to play around with, as well as the blue brown. I honestly bought this palette because of this particular shadow right here. I wanted to see for myself it was an exact dupe for the MAC Blue Brown pigment, and I really do think it's a very, very close dupe. Almost unnoticeable if you ask me. So even if you just like MAC Blue Brown pigment or you want to get a MAC dupe, this is a great palette to have. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. It's not new. So the last palette I want to mention, and I have to say that I was kind of eerie on mentioning this because it is a drugstore palette, but it's a very, very overpriced drugstore palette, and it's this one right here. This is L'Oreal's La Nude Palette 2, or La Palette number 2. They have a number 1 and they have a number 2. I particularly just have a number 1. For the most part, I will say that the darker colors are really good colors. I will give it to L'Oreal for that because I have played around with some L'Oreal colors before, and I found that their smaller palettes aren't really my favorite. But the darker colors in here, I have to say, have really, really good color payoff to them, especially this brown one right here. This is probably one of the softest colors I ever felt. It almost reminds me of like the fake makeup, you know, the makeup that's like fake and when you touch it, it's just plastic. That's what it reminds me of. But as you guys can see, super creamy, super buttery. I have done a look with this palette before. Like I stated, I really do like it, although I just wish the price point on this was a lot cheaper because like I stated, this is kind of one of those palettes where I was kind of like, do I mention it? Do I not mention it? I mean, it is drugstore, but it's kind of high-priced drugstore. So those there are the palettes that I would recommend from the drugstore. As you guys can see, there aren't a ton of palettes that I would recommend, but that's not to say that not all the palettes are good. These are just the ones that I have tried out, that I've played with, and that I would recommend. I'm sure there are tons of drugstore palettes out there that you guys may also love too. So if there is a palette that I didn't mention that you guys absolutely love from the drugstore, or maybe I don't even have it, make sure to leave it down in the comments below for other people to kind of talk about it and maybe give some good review or feedback on it. When it comes down to palettes, like I stated, my favorite has to be Wet n Wild. I just find that whenever I'm going through the drugstore kind of area, they're the first ones that I look for when it comes to eyeshadows because their eyeshadows are always a hit. I've never had a bad eyeshadow palette from Wet n Wild, so definitely do check out that range of line, but there are some other good brands out there that throw out some really good palettes as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your comments down below and let me know if any of these are on your radar or if you own any of these and your guys' thoughts. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you guys all in my next video, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.